All right, now we're live.
Yes.
Welcome, guys, to the Lost Cryptids and Cemeteries live show. My guest today is Miss Janice Carter herself with 50 Years of Bigfoot. My hosts and friends today are Miss Val, the Gumshoe Guy, and Chad Dadema. So let's get right started. Janice, you have such an amazing story and history with Bigfoot. How did all this get started for your family and yourself?
For my family, my grandfather was cutting timber off property that he bought in Monroe County, Tennessee in 1947. I don't know whether him and Everhart was the logging company that he had in, whether they cut the tree down and Fox was in it or it fell on Fox. Either way, my grandfather took this little Bigfoot in, young Bigfoot in, tried to find out if he was a lost child or, back then, children that had deformities or abnormalities. They didn't always institutionalize them. They would, keep them in their houses, keep them locked away and, in under the staircase or whatever.
Yeah.
So he went around to different families and asked, if this child belonged to any of them. They didn't. My grandmother had him put the Bigfoot Fox. It was Fox when he was little. Had him put. My grandfather put him up in the barn because he was about to destroy the house. My grandfather locked him in the center part of the front barn. We have two barns on the property.
Can you tell us about
But
destroying the house?
well, I don't know exactly what he did, but my grandmother said he was just destructive. And I know that every
Okay.
time that they would come in when I was younger, even up until 2002, if they came in the house after something, after food or anything, don't ever feed them unless you want the consequences. When you stop, they're going to invade. And that's just honest to gosh truth. They will come in your house and they can rip a door off. It doesn't matter. If it's locked, dead bolted, or what, they can just rip the door right off, come on in and help themselves. But I mean, it's
So
like raid the refrigerator, raid the cupboards, raid the, pots,
right.
pans,
Thank you,
flour, everything everywhere.
Janice. Thank you so much for the answer. I didn't need to get you off track. I just wondered about.
Sorry.
So all right. So back to your grandfather. So they put him
Mhm.
outside then,
Yeah.
and then how big was he at this point? How tall?
I don't know. I would guesstimate that he was about 4 foot, 4.5 foot
Okay.
at that time.
You know,
And
what they think about age?
um, according to my grandfather and to Fox. Now, let me back up here. Okay. They speak English very clearly. They understand English. They have their own writing. They have their own language. And I know that for a fact. I've had people, anthropologists, different linguists, and different things working with me in the field, and they can understand them. I know where their language comes from. The root base is Sanskrit, but other than that, I'm not a linguist.
Okay. Yeah, because
But
they actually the story goes they start talking and stuff to you guys. So he's
yeah,
4 foot tall and stuff, and
yeah, and
they
he
put him
said he was
outside.
7 at the time. He said, and my grandfather said he was 7 years old. So
Okay.
that's when
All
it
right.
began.
All right. So they put him outside, and then
Hmm.
well, that's a lot of years. So
Hmm.
what happens? He continues to grow and stuff, eat more.
I guess it.
What's he
I
eating?
guess my over the years, my grandfather, when Fox was little, he used to follow him around. They built this relationship, friendship. Um, Fox would defend my grandfather. I mean, even up to the day my grandfather, got really, really sick with cancer and had dementia and managed to get out and get in the middle of the road one morning at 5 a.m. And Fox stood over the top of him and didn't let anybody run over him with a car or anything. I mean, my grandfather and this Bigfoot had a unique friendship. I never had that with Fox. I had a friendship with Fox, but it wasn't anything that's similar.
Right, he took him in and stuff. So when did your grandpa realize he's not a deformed kid? Because you said he might have been a deformed kid, and back then, it was every kind of, every kid and helping hand was needed. So
I don't actually know that answer. I can assume that it was early on, but I'm not really sure. I never did ask.
well, when did, I guess, Fox start interacting with his own people and stuff outside of outside of your grandpa, out of the household?
Well, I mean, his parents were there for a long time, Fox's parents. And then obviously he went out and found Sheba and mated with her, had her as his wife. And by the time I came on the scene, Sheba had the twins.
Okay, so go ahead, Val.
Janice, back when Fox was a small child, what happened when his parents came looking for him and they discovered he was in the barn?
They tore the whole stall, the front side of the stall. The barn that faces the road, that's on the road, that's not over in the back field, not the poop barn. People confuse the front barn with the poop barn. It's not the same barn. There's 3 stalls right there on the front side of it, next to the door hallway.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather put him in the middle stall. That stall has never been fixed. They tore the boards off the outside of that stall to get to him.
They peeled them off the side of the barn.
They peeled them off the side of the barn, and this is oak. This is hard lumber.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard as heck to drive a nail through it.
Mm-hmm. And so was that at the point that your grandfather understood that was a Sasquatch and not a child?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
That is amazing and incredible. So they obviously look pretty human-like. I mean, human enough. So so they took Fox, right? And then when he kept coming back, obviously he must have.
Yeah, he kept coming back.
And just you said he speaks English and stuff.
Yeah, he spoke English.
By the time so what happened when you first got on the scene, I guess?
The first time I actually remember him, I thought they used to have in Atlanta Zoo this gorilla called Willie B. And Willie B would break out periodically and get loose. And I was about 4 years old, and there was a ravine, I always called it the ditch line, that runs right behind the house. And this, what I thought was this gorilla, was standing over in the wood line across that ditch line. And I thought Willie B had come to see me. I was about 4 years old, and I just knew that monkey came up from Georgia to see me, That's the first time I remember him. And the next time was when I ran into the back of his leg. I was blackberry picking with my grandfather, went after water, came back, and the tree moved in front of me.
Wow.
And then when I was about 3 months later, 4 months later, is when my grandfather said, "Do you want to see my fox?" And I said, "Of course I want to see a fox." I thought he had he had skunks and everything else, so why not a fox as a pet,
Oh, surprise.
Yeah, I went to the barn. Well, that fox was not a fox, He was up in under this old hickory tree, and Sheba was laying on this pink blanket that my grandmother made from scratch. I say blanket, but it was actually a quilt. My grandfather took this quilt out, and back in the day, it took women a long time to take and make quilts because they sewed them by hand. Well, she was ready to kill him. He'd taken that blanket out and given it to Sheba, for the children. And she was laying there with the twins, Chico and Blackie, and they were babies at the time. And I was a little bit scared of them at the time. I didn't know what to think. I thought, you know, you hear these stories when you're a kid, or at least when I was a kid. Oh, the boogeyman's going to get you if you go somewhere and you're not supposed to. I thought the boogeyman is fixing to nab me.
So you had some fear around
I
them?
did. I did. I still do. I respect them. I mean, you know, Fox has been dead for 10 years now, but it's like I go out and I do research and I go into these areas and I've interacted with a lot of them for many, many years that are not Fox's family at all or even related. But I still have a healthy fear of them because they can be unpredictable. It's just like you go in an alley somewhere in, say, New York City. You're not going down that dark alley without having a little bit of fear of doing so. Especially if there's a bunch of people standing in that alley. What are they up to? What are they doing? Are they going to shoot you? Are they going to be friendly? Or are they drug addicts? What are they?
Good point.
Right, and they're all individual, right?
Yes.
Individual personalities and temperaments.
Yeah.
Chad, what were you? What was the point you had to make?
Well, Janice,
Mhm.
I don't want to bring up bad memories because I do know the story of Fox's death. I do. We all do. We've all studied this a long time. But
Yes.
can you tell us since Fox's death, has anything happened? Are there any other Bigfoot that have reached out to you?
I still interact with his daughter, Nikki, and her husband, Winnie Bojo. Her name's Nikki Pisha. His name is Winnie Bojo. I call him Nikki and Bo for short. And actually Chico's son, Kanune, I interact with him. My daughter, my youngest daughter, that's her favorite Bigfoot. That's her best friend.
So it's still going on. It
Yeah,
still
it's
continues.
still going on. Yeah, it's continued through me, through my children. My grandchildren don't like to have much to do with them, but of course they live out in Washington State. So,
anybody want to follow this up?
Yeah, well, Janice, as you were growing up on the farm, you did see a clan, a family of these gather, I assume, quite a few times. What were the different personalities that you noticed from these beings, both female and male?
Fox was more laid back, more relaxed, was hard to anger. Sheba had a short fuse. I mean, especially if you messed with their children. Blackie was dangerous, and he still is. Very, I don't know how to describe him. It's like a predator.
Really?
That's the best. Yeah, he's a predator. That's the best way to. It's like a serial killer that stalks their kill. You know what I mean? That's coming from your background there. I'm talking to you one on one here. You know, you're a criminal investigator. If you saw this person and he was actually out there and he's lurking around and he's stalking people, that's exactly what he is. He's a danger.
Well,
He's a menace.
I often try to draw comparisons when I'm talking to people. You've seen some of the product that I put out there.
Yeah.
If you were in my place and I'm out here on the streets and I seen this great big being,
yes,
stalking, stopping, following you, peeking at you, and sometimes even coming up to your windows, peeping in the window, pounding on the side of the house. People would call the police for something like that. And it might not be. It might be your neighbor that's drunk or something. I don't know. But people, in civil society, that's what they do. That's what we do. I mean, it's not normal behavior. But somehow, the parallels that I draw is that when we get out in the woods, we somehow feel that that's acceptable. And if Bigfoot is human,
Yes.
which, that's arguable. But if Bigfoot are human, then we have to look at these different behaviors that aren't, they're not social type.
No, they're not social
behaviors.
at all.
Another example of that is window peeping. Window peeping, if you look at any background of investigators that know the topic, that know the subject, they know that voyeurism and window peeping start at that peeping the window, and it progresses. It's one of those things, it's one of those flags, those red flags that pop up that law enforcement looks at, because it's those telltale signs that usually progress to rape and murder. That's true.
Yes.
And it starts with voyeurism, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's some of the reasons why I post the things I do, because it's not that I want to convince anybody of that. It's just that I want to provoke thought, ideas. And it's not saying that that Sasquatch is all bad. I've read reports of good Samaritan Bigfoots, but but they're
not your big cuddly teddy bear that sits on your bed during the day and you go in and you hug up to it at night. It just doesn't happen that way, And
not everybody has a fox.
No.
That is interesting, because
that's a rare thing.
The stuff they do does mimic, like you said, Val, things
humans.
that humans, but also tendencies and that are non-social or serial killer, psychopathic stuff.
Yeah.
Janice, are they bloodthirsty? Is that their personality, or is it because they actually are bloodthirsty?
Not all of them.
Hungry,
no. Not all of them.
You want to know if they're hungry, Blake?
I've heard that they're bloodthirsty. Is like if the appetite is not satisfied, then they get very bloodthirsty in a sense.
I want to ask Janice my big question.
Okay.
Can I ask her the question that I've been wanting to ask her?
Hold on. Let's answer this.
Okay. Let me answer the bloodthirsty thing first. Okay. Not all of them are. There are some that are actually cannibalistic. And I don't advise, and I actually know where one group is, and I don't go there. And trust me, I am scared to death of that bunch. And I will not take anybody in there. I mean, they're bad. They're just bad.
Do you know why they're cannibalistic?
I have no clue.
Okay.
I mean, if other Bigfoot fear them, I mean, the more gentle giants, so to speak, fear them, and they won't go there. They don't even cross into the same territory as this bunch. So it's like, okay, if they're not going to mess with them, why would I want to? I don't have a death wish.
Is this down in Tennessee?
Yes.
Is it just good and bad? Just like there's just good ones and there's just bad ones in a sense? Or are these? It's like cannibalistic. That's again another very sadistic and depraved type of thing to do, and generally, especially being mean and stuff. So other Bigfoot are not doing that, or
no. So it's just this one group, and I don't know. I really do not know why they're like they are.
Just, each individuals and the group who learn these traits and what they do. So, Chad, what was your question for Janice?
Yes.
Well, Janice.
Yes.
I'd like to just take a few minutes and ask you multiple things, and just if I can get 5-10 minutes, whatever.
Okay.
The main thing, and I understand, but I want to delve deeper into your history with them, because not everybody that's watching this really realizes the beginning. So, how old were you when you first experienced Bigfoot?
Well, like I said, I was about 4 years old when I saw him,
Okay.
saw Fox standing across. But when I really, really started interacting and became fascinated with them, I was about 8.5 years old. It was the summer I was 8.5 years old at the time. And my grandmother had a heck of a time getting me to do anything in the house or stay in the house. I got my fair share of switchings. And yes, she used a hickory stick to switch me with. Because
I got paddled too.
yeah, I got switched. Let me tell you.
Now, Janice. Um,
Mhm.
if you can try to remember, how much interaction as a child at 8, 6, probably even when you were first interacting, but you really remember 8, 8.5. How much interaction did you have with this creature growing up out in the middle of nowhere? Were you friends with them? Did you play with them? Did you go down the creek and make mud pies or just swim? I mean, fill us in. We really
Okay.
want to know.
So, I mean, I was very. They used to call it being a tomboy when a girl acted like a little boy and jumped bikes across the creek and did all this, climb trees and stuff. But I was very active as a child. I still have hyperactivity. So, um, but that said, I remember I guess I was about 10, and Blackie. I don't know why Chico didn't interact at the time. No, that was after Chico went vanished. Anyway, okay. Any rate, I played with Blackie when he was little. Um, Sheba had this rock that she liked to lay on that was down next to our creek and spring at the front of the property. And she had it like a lean-to type structure built there. I don't know whether you've seen. It's not
It's a
explosive.
marker. We know. It's a marker.
Yeah. And she would get up in under that and she would rest. Well, me and Blackie, I took out pots and pans. My grandmother got on to me for carrying off utensils. But anyway, I made mud pies with him. I played with him all day that day. And I finally, I put different things in my mud pies. And I got it in my head that I was going to have Blackie eat these things. And I've actually had put a grub worm. Well, heck, they eat grubs, you know. But I had him eat this grub worm, and I had him eat what are those, hibiscus, the flower.
Yeah. That's
And
not good. No.
Sheba Sheba woke up because I was having him eating these mud pies and this, and Sheba woke up and got up, and she got mad at me, and she started running after me. Of course, I knew I was in trouble, so I ran, and she was reaching down, picking up big clods of dirt with grass, and dirt, and throwing them at me, you know. And she chased me all the way back up to the house. Um, I played with him that time. I would go out, I'd follow him around, interact with them. I mean, I'd sit, down, we'd roast marshmallows. My grandfather would even go out and show Fox and them how to roast marshmallows, for heaven's sakes. But they didn't quite get the concept. They were supposed to put the marshmallow on then the stick. They tried to take a bunch of them and crush them up together and stick them on the stick. And of course, the marshmallows fall off into the fire.
Hey, I'd like to finish up my question and leave you with Val and Blake. On my question, like I said, there was a couple things I wanted to ask you. In your recommendation, with your experience in living with these creatures, what would you recommend to somebody that's out looking for them? What would you recommend to somebody that finds them? How do you behave with them? How should you treat them? What's going over, like crossing the line with them? If you could please answer that, and then then I'm going to sit here on mute. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Janice.
You're welcome. If you're out there and you're actively searching for them and interacting with them, you need to remember three things. And that's water, food, and shelter. They're going to be where water, food, and shelter is at. Can you all hear me still?
Mhm.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Water, food, and shelter. All right. So we go into this area and it will sustain them in an area. It's got plenty of deer, game, whatever. All right. If you run up on one, don't turn your back to it because they can chase you down. I mean, I don't care if you think it's growling at you. A lot of people, when they say hello, think that they're growling because they talk from the diaphragm, not from the mouth. Okay, like we do. And you'll think that they're growling at you. Only if they start to charge you should you back up really fast. But don't turn your back on them. They will always leave an opening for you to get out of there. I had an encounter with a friend of mine and my research partner just this weekend. Actually, it was Saturday that we saw. We knew the Bigfoot were in the area, but we saw something else that we don't know what this cryptid was. It was a cryptid. I don't know what it was.
Okay.
So we gave chase like idiots. We're chasing it, trying to figure out what it is. I'm filming it on camera, trying to figure out what in the world is this thing. And it wasn't a Bigfoot that we were after. But we managed to get some Bigfoot in the film that were there. But what in the world was this? And going against my own advice, here we are chasing it. It could have turned on us very easily and, killed us.
Yeah, that's right. Well, in the moment you get excited, adrenaline's pumping, and you wanna try to find out the truth. And I know it's the same feeling. And
Yeah.
so segueing
And they
back.
do, and they do have personal space, so don't try to go up and hug one because that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and each are individuals, and you might get a pretty mad one, especially if they're cranky and just woke them up from a nap. You don't want to be on that bad side of it.
Yeah.
Segueing back, when I first seen you and heard of you, it was actually on TV. You were on National Geographic with on a little segment with Igor. At the
Yes.
time, there was a bunch of Bigfoot shows and Monster Quest, and
Oh, yeah.
a bunch came out all at once.
Mhm.
And you are basically, the famous thing is you're feeding onions and stuff, giving onions to fox and stuff.
Garlic.
Garlic, yeah, garlic for the fleas and
Mhm.
things like that.
Mhm.
What was that like interacting with them and speaking to them and stuff? Because how could you get what's advice that you could give to other people to get to that level to interact
What?
and speaking?
Okay. I have a lot of people that, that'll phone me. They phone me for advice. They'll text me. They're like, "Oh my God, is this the Janice Carter?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm Janice Carter." And they'll ask for advice because they want to be able to interact with them, or they know that they're on their property and they've seen one and they don't know what to do about it. Okay, you're not going to get rid of them. They're going to stay there. If that's their home turf, that's their home turf. They're not moving. So the best thing to do is try to coexist with them. I don't advise people to feed them. I mean, I know that my grandfather did, and I know that I have, but I don't advise you to go out and give them treats and gift them because they expect it religiously. It's like every time the church doors are open, you're supposed to be there. The same with them. Every time they think that you're supposed to continue feeding them, and they retaliate if you stop. So that said, if you're going to interact with them, do it limitedly. If you're going to gift them something, don't gift them food. Gift them something like a blanket or a toy or something. Because
What Janice is saying, I can tell you 100%. I've done and it's not always good. And gifting is not always good.
It's not.
It really
we
isn't.
were actually gifting, and then we brought more people to his area, and then they kind of destroyed the gifting spot. You know, broke the branches we were hanging the apples from, and created little like barrier fences and the trails to get in. So it
Yeah.
was like, what's this doing here? You know, so yeah, you can make him mad by doing little things like that, or not being on time, or just
Yeah.
So continue on, I guess.
Okay. But
Ellis, Val, you got a quick question or any segment you want to try to get into?
In your book, Janice, you mentioned that your granddaddy, gave Fox a jacket or overalls or something.
yes, back in the day, what was his name? Calhoun was his last name. What was his first name? I can't think. He was a wrestler, and he wore these great big overalls to wrestle in. My grandfather loved wrestling, but anyway, and I know that my grandfather went. I was coming of age, and my grandmother thought it was inappropriate for this naked, hairy man to be running around in front of me, nude. And so my grandfather went up to J.C. Penney's in Knoxville and bought Calhoun's overalls and these. It was like, I think they were 6X extra large, the X's, 6X's large T-shirts. He managed to get Fox to put them on, but then Fox would not keep the overalls on. He did keep the T-shirt on and wore it until it was just like the collar was around his neck. And that was it. It was just a rag.
Because some people, as you know, I do a lot of data mining research.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of reports of visual sightings of Bigfoot Sasquatches wearing tattered clothes, whether it be a pair of pants, a jacket, a T-shirt, what have you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there in the Bigfoot community, Janice. They simply can't put their head around that. It's just too far out for their belief.
Well, let's blow their doors open and their ideas and thoughts open and say they do use fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
Okay. Why not?
Janice, that's why we have you here. Let's blow their doors open. That's why you're here. That's why we're doing what we're doing. That's why the Lost Cryptids are taking us to a new level, and we're doing what we're doing. Let's do it.
Okay.
Back on mute.
But talking about clothes, they will make. They actually weave. They use different grasses, different vines and stuff. They weave mats. They use animal skins. I've seen them in everything from a wolf pelt to deer hide. They will cover their feet. A lot of people say, "Oh well, here's an Indian that's got a 23-inch foot." Out here wearing moccasins walking through the mud. Excuse me, no, that's not an Indian. Indians don't have 23-inch foots.
All right, so that begs the question. What are they? What kind of people are they? They're a type of people. They're talking. They have a language. They understand our language and speak it. You said they're ancient Sanskrit and stuff. So where do they come from? What is their backstory? And
do you want their backstory, or do you want my idea of what it should be?
Well, yeah. Well, what do you think? What do you think it is?
Oh, what I think is, I think that a lot of people. I'm going to open a can of worms here. Okay. When I read the Bible, okay, there is science in the Bible. A lot of people, I've done debates for years. Creation versus evolution. But even in the Bible, it allows for evolution, okay? That said, in the beginning, God creates everything, and he creates man and woman. and he tells them to go forth and multiply. Okay. Then you have Adam. He creates Adam specifically to be in the Garden of Eden. Okay. He makes Eve from Adam's rib, supposedly. Okay. As a helpmate. When Cain kills Abel, Cain, there's a mark put on Cain so that he can be identified. Okay. Cain goes out. He goes to the land of Nod to find a wife. He does not marry his sister. That didn't happen. So there were people here during Adam and Eve's time, besides of Adam and Eve and their children. Okay. That said, I believe that they are the first creation. They're a part of that first creation.
So Jan, what you're saying is Bigfoot wasn't here then, but Bigfoot was created from then.
Yes. And that's not saying the Nephilim. That's not saying the fallen angels created them and they're the giants of oak.
Yeah,
That's saying that they were here right alongside of us all along.
So they derive from us.
Yeah, you have different theories, or like the children of Esau, you know, the elder brother of Jacob, who
yeah, my grandfather believed
says they got tricked in with a goat hair to match Esau. So there's a
yeah,
lot
my
of
grandfather believed that. I mean, he turned to the Bible for everything. My grandma, if it wasn't in the Bible, it couldn't be explained.
Right, and back then, you know, a lot of people were more religious and actually read their Bibles and wholeheartedly believed in. So obviously, when your grandfather finding this child, and
now we're jumping down a rabbit hole. Okay,
yes,
I mean, literally, I mean.
But
we were all created from something, but I mean, we're getting a little deep, in my opinion.
But everyone does.
But I think that just like us, okay, let's go into the evolutionary side of things. Okay. We have Homo erectus, we have Cro-Magnon, we have Neanderthal. Okay, how do we know from a jawbone that we have their structure correct?
We don't.
From Giganto and stuff. Oh,
we don't.
Computer simulation.
We can only go back about 15,000 years, maybe 20, and accurately say that our genetics are identical. Yeah, we share the genetics with all the old hominids. We have some parts of them. But it's like the last 15,000 years that we have, it's different genetics. It's almost like we're a creation.
Yeah.
You know, it's each and every year that stuff is, they're finding new stuff and breakthroughs and techniques.
Yeah.
And so it's always changing. They're finding new stuff like Denisovans and the hobbits, Indonesia and stuff. So
I don't know.
It's just like the Iran Pendic. Back in at the time, we were studying them, not just Bigfoot, but we were studying them. And I had one of my anthropologist friends went over there, Wilson Wheatcroft, to Indonesia. And he said, well, yeah, they're real. It's not the sun bear that these people are seeing over there.
Mm-hmm. Right. People could tell the difference between, you know, bears and these things.
Yeah.
They're distinctly different in behavior, activity. Even when bears stand up, they're not as mobile. They can't do the things that these things do if people see. So
But my thing is, okay, if it walks like a man and it talks like a man, it's got to be some kind of person.
Right. It does. Hey, and Blake.
People.
Blake. I can just look at Val. I see his face. He's got like 5 questions to ask.
Jump on in, Val. Anytime, man. Jump on in.
Come on, Val. It's you, buddy.
Janice, in your book, 50 Years of Bigfoot, you spoke about, briefly, you spoke about a little girl, or I should say a girl, that went missing. Can you speak to that?
Yes. There, I think what you're talking about is one of them that went missing, correct?
Well, I thought it was the way I understood it, it was a girl, a teenager that they were going out to some lover lane or something, and maybe
Okay, that was the
disappeared.
rape.
That
No,
was a
she
rape?
didn't. Yes, she did not disappear. Blackie, the reason I say he is so dangerous, and he is the one that, you know, if he came at me, and he is still around at the farm, and I have pulled a gun on that sucker, I would blow his brains out, and you can put me in jail for it, but I would in a heartbeat if he was to be aggressive, because he is dangerous, and I know for a fact that he raped this young teenage girl when I was little.
So he's a pedophile running through the woods.
The reason
Huh?
why
So
The
he's
reason
like
why-
a sex offender running through the woods, Blackie.
the reason why I say that is because in Washington
Mm-hmm.
there were first of all there was a serial killer
Yes.
by the name of Bundy that
I
started out
know.
in Michigan that went
Mhm.
all across the West. He ended up in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
There were some bodies that were found or discovered, and some of
Mhm.
the search and rescue people went out with dogs, and they found these women.
Yes.
And what the searcher said, the dog handler said,
Mhm.
was that they found huge footprints all around in the mud around these corpses. And
Okay.
but the only reason that the article that I found that I read links
Mhm.
Bundy to them is because Bundy, the suspect, the prolific killer from Michigan, was connected to these women through investigation and stuff. So they think that it wasn't the Bigfoot that did this, that it was this idiot that was dropping his bodies, his handiwork out there in the woods. And so the Bigfoots or Sasquatches came upon it, looked at it.
Mhm.
I don't know, either knew that it wasn't good or stayed away from it, but they were there. There was evidence that they were there because the search and rescue person seen the footprints there.
Right.
So
That's not just the case with Ted Bundy's story. There's been several people who have their remains have been found in the woods in remote areas, everywhere from the West Coast all the way down to the East Coast. And there are Bigfoot tracks around the body, not just the killers, but actually, Bigfoot.
So what do you
They
suppose
do,
that means?
they do have a curiosity, and they like to hang out around graveyards. They will protect
Exactly.
a graveyard.
I have to interrupt. Why?
Yeah.
Why do you think, Janice? Why do they like? And I agree with you, and it's a known fact that graveyards, places of death, places of trauma are high Bigfoot activity areas. In
Yes.
your opinion, just your opinion, why would you think that would be?
Because they considered it hollow ground. It's sacred. They respect their dead, and they respect our dead.
I use cemeteries as one of my 116, probably 120 data points.
Okay.
And that is a fact, Janice, and that's something that I've always had my peeps open, my eyes open to when I read these reports. There's certain things in reports that I look for, and one of them happens to be cemeteries. And
Yes.
and we were speaking a while back during a Parafest, and a question had come up about Bigfootery, and paranormal ghost hunters and stuff. And
Yeah.
I made the correlation that there is a tie, there is a connection between Bigfoots and cemeteries. It has been my long position that, among other things, in my opinion, they hang around there because they smell. They can smell with their super senses. They can smell decay. That's what they could smell. And just like if you were to watch a YouTube video of coyotes walking through
Yeah.
cemeteries, you'll notice that they stop and sniff the ground. And even
Yeah.
though a lot of these caskets are bundled and sealed supposedly in concrete vaults, they're not
Yeah.
they're not impervious to leakage and scent.
No, because I mean, you worked homicide. Have you ever smelled a dead body?
Oh God,
Hmm.
yes.
There is nothing that smells like that in this world.
No. I
Nothing.
remember a lot of times being around deceased people.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to grab a big vapor rub or
Yeah.
some broken cigarette butts and stick them in your
Anything.
nose because you'd vomit all over the place.
Yeah.
But that's a smell that when you get that smell on you, you have to go home and change.
Yeah.
You have to go put a different set of clothes on because you can't get that stink off of you. It's
No, and it
something
gets in your nostrils, and it's like it's there
it's
for
horrible.
days.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible. But
I worked rescue.
Val.
I worked your search and rescue. So
yeah.
Val, what about electromagnetic frequency, though? Is this something that we should rule out? Is this something that's just a farce? I mean, is something that could be real?
I don't think so.
Even
I don't think so, because there was a video that I posted on this Facebook group site last summer. Maybe it was last summer. Maybe it was last spring. And somebody had video recorded perfectly of a small Sasquatch frantically digging up a grave. And somebody videotaped that, put it on YouTube, and a short time later it was taken off of my group. So somebody got in there and pulled that video off, and you can't find that anymore. But it was on there.
Yeah.
And I have to believe it was digging. I hate to say it, but it was digging for something to eat. That's what I think. That's my opinion.
Is it because, their primal urges are just too strong? And like I said, when they get hungry, their primal urges get in overdrive, and they have to eat. They have to do this.
That's what I think.
They eyeball women. Sometimes they do bad things. And
another reason why I say this is because in my study, there's a case back in Virginia or Tennessee, Kentucky, or someplace down south where during the Civil War, a gentleman was brought back home badly injured, and he died a short time later from the injuries he sustained in the Civil War. I mean, he just died. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to die at home. The family buries him on a big hill, and I think Eberhard was the one that wrote the story on this. You mentioned Eberhard. I don't know if there are any connection between him and this author, but Eberhard's done a lot of writing on the Sasquatch history down south and the Civil War stories. But it's supposedly a Sasquatch had dug up this body the family buried and had eaten on the corpse, and it upset the family so badly that they went out hunting for this Sasquatch that they knew lived in the area. But as the story goes, supposedly they didn't kill the Sasquatch, but the Sasquatch apparently died from falling under a tree fell on it or something. So it was a very interesting story, but it also goes back to the question of why they like to hang around the cemeteries. And I mean, from what I've read, from what I see, there's a whole lot of evidence pointing at that reason. So,
well, I mean, it's a possibility. I don't know. I do know that I accidentally found out that they like to be around cemeteries. And it had to do with back in 2002, I moved back to the farm because Mary Green and Dmitry Vanoff and Igor asked me if I would return to the farm and try to build a relationship with Fox and his family again so that they could come and Igor could come in 2004 there. So I worked with them for about 2 years. I was feeding them in a bucket and I noticed these artificial flowers kept showing up in the bucket. And I was like, where in the world are they getting this from? I had taken, when my grandfather, well, when my mother, my grandfather, and grandmother, and my uncle are buried in a cemetery is less than a mile as crow flies. It's about 3 miles by road from the old farm. And I kept like, where are you all getting these artificial flowers from? I couldn't believe it, you know. And they kept showing up, and they were actually gifting me these flowers, in return for the food. Well, I had taken a vase with some flowers up there, a little green vase with some flowers, and put it on my grandfather's grave. That vase ended up in the bucket. Then I knew. It was like, connect the dots, They're going up there and robbing the cemetery of the flowers, And that's when I had no prior knowledge of them hanging out around cemeteries. But ever since, oh yeah, I've paid attention.
Mhm.
There's so
And why
much
they
I
do
want to
it,
ask you, Janice. There's so much I want to ask you, and we're never going to get to it tonight. I'm just going to sit here and be quiet, though. I just want you to know I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
Let's take some questions from the chat, actually.
Sounds good, man.
Said, there was some already. What does Bigfoot do with their dead? I think that. What do you think they do? They tell you what they do? The most common answer is, bury their dead. But...
Okay. I believe that they bury their dead because I've seen them do so.
Okay.
That's not saying that all of them do.
Where do they bury them at? They're not buried in places that people are finding them, because if they buried them for dead, we'd find more fossil remains.
Actually, if you know what to look for, yeah, you can find them.
I've always heard that they've sometimes plant trees on top of their dead. Because,
not always. Not always.
When a tree falls over, these skeletons pop out and they're 8 foot tall.
No.
Okay.
Not always.
Let's see. Scrolling through.
Probably 100 questions. Keep asking, man. I want the answers. Keep asking.
Okay.
Come on, Dad. Or Blake. Oh my God. Keep asking, Blake.
All right. Here's one from Bomber. Janice, I recently heard her star structure made from sticks is a common occurrence in their area. I found one where I had a sighting. Do you know what it represents? What about the A glyph?
Okay. A lot of people want to call that, say that stands for the alpha. It doesn't. If you are actually tracking them, these are ground signs, and you have to know which limb to go off of and look at it as a map of the area. That's the best thing I can tell you. Think in your head, okay, what's over here, what's over there, and follow. There'll be a Y in it. There'll always be one stick that has a Y that brings us off.
Oh, no. Don't make me interrupt you. That's my whole quest in life. It's the Y branch. Don't make me interrupt you. I try to figure out the meaning of the Y branch, and I find it everywhere. I find it upside down, right side up, and all of it in the same areas. What does it mean? Oh my! I'm sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't help.
Here's real quick. Here's the next question. Sorry. How does Fox smell? Gabe, these are one of our own members of Lost Cryptids.
How did Fox smell?
Yeah, how did Fox smell when you're giving him the garlic?
Okay, don't hold this to me. They can smell like a nasty wet dog. Actually, a lot of times he would smell clean. Other times he was just absolutely overbearing. And I've been around it and I've started to associate it smells like burnt grass and
Okay.
skunk combination.
I've always associated it with musty towels that sat in a washing machine for a week, and then you open the washing machine.
Yeah, but have you ever burned leaves out in your yard? You know, back in the day, we used to burn the leaves in the fall, and then you've got that skunk smell, you know, on top of it, and it's like combine the two, and sometimes even used coffee grounds, you know, really strong coffee like JFG or something.
Well, I saw Blake skip my question. Can you answer it, pretty
Oh,
please?
about the why. Okay, I wanted to, if it's upside down in the ground, there's
And
a burial ground. There's
we
one of their
find this
graves.
all the time. Okay, why that's what I look for the most. That's why I want to know. Upside
Okay.
down means a grave.
There's a grave nearby. Okay, one of their graves. If it's pointing up and it's just simply a Y, I want you to sight off both tips of those Ys, and you're going to measure their foot is 18 inches, okay, as opposed to 12 inches. So measure the base of that stick and off with the tip. You don't measure where the Y splits, but off of that tip of each Y, there's going to be a structure right out from it, and you're going to times the inches that the base is by 10, and you're going to come up with your footage, and you'll find their structures.
Well, I'm going to validate for you. Every time I find Y structures in mass, there's always other structures close by. So.
Yeah,
seems to be what we find too. And
it's simply a map, and you have to know how to read.
What's
those
it
maps.
mean, Janice? What, in your opinion? I know you probably don't know, or maybe you do. What does this map mean? What's this map? What's this map telling Bigfoot, or telling why? Why do they do this?
They do it so that other Bigfoot know where to go, where to hunt, where to find water, where to meet up with each other. Hurry, you know. Val had, I think it was on Val's group, that you had it where the indigenous people had different signs.
Yeah.
The same with them. I mean, even you know, even the what are they called down there in South America? Europari
Hmm.
still use these. Broken branch means hurry. A leaner means, you know, go this way, hurry this way, or you know, our village is over here, or we're good hunting is over here. The same thing with them.
what do you think
It's an
about?
ancient language.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, what do you think about star structures and stuff? That was, I guess, what Bomber was getting to is, what is star structures meaning? Is the asterisks or astrids and stuff?
Actually, actually, they have several different meanings, so I'd have to actually be able to see one. It could be an indication that there's going to be a gathering of a bunch of them in one place, and especially this time of year because they do recognize the solstice.
Okay.
The
There
winter,
is
the
a
winter
bolt.
solstice.
Okay, yes. Do you? They also recognize the summer. Do you know what a bolt knot is?
No, I don't. I've not heard
Okay,
the term.
okay. It's actually three triangles. It looks like a star, but it's actually three triangles that tie into each other. It's a Norse bolt knot. They use that sign a lot, and it has to do with the area, whether the area is mountainous or hilly. And again, it's simply a map.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I think and stuff. It seems like we find stuff. So
Mhm.
do they mind speak?
Yes,
Yes, they do.
yes.
How do they do you know how do they do that stuff? How are they able to do that?
Okay. Let's open up this can of worms. It's like a download of information from one person to the other when you're actually telepathic. It's like I can reach in to you, and I don't invade people, but I can do this. I've been tested at the Ryan Center at Duke University. I do have some God-given gifts. I'll put it that way. I'm not a witch. I'm not, satanic or any of this stuff. But when they do it, what it feels like for me to do it, I get images, I get words, I get a whole book downloaded at once to me. If I'm reaching in and I want to say something back to them, it's like a clearer form of communication. But if you keep it up, or at least if I keep it up for quite a while, say 30 minutes or so, I become overwhelmed. My anthropologist friend, who is now deceased, that worked with me and worked out in the field with him, he said it's like remote viewing of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that, Val?
Well, remote viewing is it's real, and it's acknowledged by the government.
Yes.
But I remember talking to Janice about my own personal experience. And I think, if you recall, Janice, I said it felt as though I were thinking thoughts and communicating, but my mouth wasn't moving, and neither was it. It was just blinking at me. And I asked you what was going on. And do you want me to tell people what you...
Sure.
You said, you told me they were reading you, Val. They were reading. I said, what do you mean reading me? They were looking into you. They were looking into your heart. What kind of person you are? Who are you? And what I felt in my personal encounter was not this love and kisses and hugs and everything. I felt something dark and hateful on me, and I didn't do anything to these things.
Right, and it can be overwhelming, Val, because, and I'm telling everybody this, it can be very overwhelming. For instance, I have one that I've worked with for many, many years. We call him Grumpy. Mary worked with him. I've worked with him for years. It's continual thing, ongoing thing to this day even. If I bring strangers into his area, which I have before, they'll say, oh, we can feel him scanning us, or they can feel him, and it's not a pleasant feeling. No. Sometimes he'll even do this with me, and it's like this, it's hard to describe. It's like this invisible laser beam that is scanning you from head to toe and back up. And it's like you get this adrenaline rush and then this overwhelming feeling of dread.
Exactly.
Like, this is it, buddy. They're going to take me out. And I don't know how to explain that, but it is what it is.
Not to interrupt, man. Let me say my interpretation. It's unexplainable. And that's all I have to say. I've experienced exactly what she's saying, what Janice is talking about. It's unexplainable. You look for an answer, and there's no answer. I'm muting.
Okay.
So, what do you think it's going to take for us to have a kind of interaction that your grandpa had, or a Jane Goodall moment where we're sitting down in the woods and we're filming them and they're coming close and they're acting like, gorillas or something, where they're doing something and on camera next to us?
I'm going to tell you how, the way I generally conduct research, and especially with scientists and anthropologists and whatnot that have gone out there with me, I sit down, we pick a location. We say, okay, we're going to go here. And I know whether or not there's Bigfoot in the area. I can tell you in a split second whether or not the area's got Bigfoot. I feel them. I sense them. I can see their signs. You know, if there's no signs, there's not water, food, shelter, forget it. They're not there. They're not going to be there. And there are urban Bigfoot and there are suburban Bigfoot. I mean, there's several that are right in the middle of Knox County in the city limits, believe it or not.
Reports. There's our people who are experiencing stuff. That's right. You do hear
Yeah.
about them.
Yeah. And that said, I'll go and I sit down. I simply start talking to them. I talk out loud in English. I tell them who I am. I ask them if they will come and join in. Generally, if they are of a curious type or a nice type, you know, they will come and they will sit down and they'll form like a semicircle around you. Once you are in the middle of that semicircle, they have accepted you and they will start interacting with you. If you pursue them, you're never going to get anywhere.
Okay.
It's like going in, say that you're studying an indigenous people, say over in New Guinea somewhere. You're not going to go in invasively. You're not going to bombard their homes and demand that they tell you about them. You're going to go in, you're going to sit down, and you're going to listen to what they have to say to you. Only by doing that are you going to learn anything from indigenous people anywhere.
Yeah, show that respect, and hopefully
Yeah.
you get the same. They grant you access to what they want you to have. And what about for people who say this is all baloney, that they don't do all this? They're just flesh and blood. They're just big monkeys that are out there just wild. What do you say to those kind of people? Because all this is pretty hot and heavy and hard for the average person to accept, let alone here in the Bigfoot community, because we're all spread each and every way. So,
Well, let's just put it this way. I don't think that I do not think they're gigantic, as black as a pig or whatever that thing is. The old gorilla, okay, or orangutan or whatever the thing was supposed to be. I just do not think that's what they are at all, ever. I never have thought that. Because here in North America, we've never had an ape. Never.
right.
So what are they? They're a type of people. DNA doesn't lie. I mean, they're human on one side, they're human on the mother's side. DNA doesn't lie.
And the father is supposedly something else, and
The father is something else, and it's an unknown. It doesn't match with primate, and we're considered primates.
Right. What about people who say they can't talk, speak English, or anything like that? They're just wild and the normal Bigfoot, non-mind speak, non-verbal communication type of. What do you say to those researchers and people?
They don't know how to understand them.
They need to open their eyes a bit, open their brains, and think outside the box. Accept things a little bit more. Or?
Yes, and the best advice I can give you is if you can get them, record them, not just hooping or hollering, okay? But if you can record them actually talking, even if they sound like they're growling, slow that down. Record it at like a 78 and slow it down to a 33 album. I don't know whether any of you know the old record players, and play it back slow. You'll understand them. Or better yet, turn your back, close your eyes, and listen to Ron Moorhead's Sierra Sounds, Samurai Shatter. Actually listen to it. Listen to what they are saying, because 95% of that is spoken in direct English to those men back all those years ago by the Bigfoot up in Sierra Mountains.
So you actually can hear what they're saying, is what you're saying?
Oh, I know what they're saying. They tell their own story.
Okay. Do you want to share that, and people can try to find that out and stuff on their own?
Well, I mean, you can get into the wilderness. Ron actually narrates that one himself. Jonathan Flakes
Yeah.
or Flakes or whatever his name narrated the first one.
Okay.
But what they do is the Bigfoot are up there and they're trying to interact with Al Barry and Ron and um, I'm trying to think of all the guys, Bill and all of them that are up there at the time. And
We don't have to think of them.
I can't think of all of their names.
You don't have to think of
Yeah,
them.
there was a bunch.
Yeah.
So,
But at any rate, so the Bigfoot are up there and they're trying to interact with them. And Ron tries to mimic them when he's up there with Bill and Warren. And what is going on is the female, her name is Wahump, and she's hollering out because they've made a kill. The men have. And she hollers out and she sings something. And she says, I want some of that, okay? Because she wants some of their kill. They want them to interact and share their meat with them, their food with them. So she goes, I want some of that. And he pipes in and says, who'd really want it? And it sounds like, and I can't get as deep as him, who'd really want it? And he asked him, backwards sentence structure, goodwill you want? Good. You're here to talk.
Can I ask you a question, Janice?
Uh-huh.
Would you be willing to come out on a Lost Cryptid Conservatory outing this year in Michigan, where we go out for like multiple days and nights in the woods, and we'll have access to go to areas for showers and things
Chad
like
is
that.
trying to say is you're always welcome on a trip. If you ever come to Michigan, come to our areas. We'd love to take you out and see what we can happen. I mean, try to get
Sure.
of course.
The only thing I ask, and I do go on outings with a lot of people, and a lot of people, I'm hush hush because it's how to put it. I'm not always welcome by everybody.
It would be secret. We would do it secret.
Yeah.
Jan.
But
that's no secret now. But
but yeah, certainly, I'd love to join you.
It's always Chad for you. He's always happy. You know what? It would be an honor actually to have you out because having you out in these areas and stuff and trying to get interaction like the way you can and claim and stuff. It only help us in our research and the data we can come up with fine. And anyways,
I'm not a woo guy.
No.
That way. I'm not a woo guy, but I do believe that there's abilities that they have, and I do believe that I've experienced them. I do believe they have means of communicating and connecting with certain people. I believe this. I believe this from the get-go, from all my encounters and experience. Now, do I believe they just disappear in the woods? No. Can they disappear? Yeah. All they have to do is step back in the shadows. Do I believe they jump in a portal? No. Can I say that they do or don't? No. And I'm not going to dispute the people that say that, but that's not what I find. I find that they're really here, and I find they have these abilities that they can communicate with certain people. And I believe certain people, this is my opinion, everybody. Okay, I'm sorry I'm jumping in and interrupting. My opinion is there are people out there that the Bigfoot connect with. Like people like me. Why do I have all these sightings? Why do I have 3 clear daylight sightings? Why does all this stuff happen to me? Yeah, I'm not making this stuff up. Why? Why does Jan have all this happen to her? I believe that there's a connection. Let's not call it spiritual. Let's call it an energy connection where they can read. They can sense intention. They can. Now, can I prove this? No. But in my 7 years of study, this is what I'm finding.
Well, it's like, okay, with me, you know, I can ask them and I can tell you this, and whether you believe it or not, it's your choice. They say that they choose you. If
I
they
believe
want,
it.
if
Jan, I
you're
believe it.
someone that they want to interact with, they say that they choose you. I do not know what normal is. I wish I did. I wish, you know, many times I'm like, why can't I be just like a normal person and not even have to deal with these things? Because when you open up the door and you have Bigfoot, you get into a lot more of the paranormal research than, I mean, it's like you see one and then you get off ghost hunting, okay? You have spirits and wisp and things that are talking and
Orbs.
orbs. Yeah, orbs is a good one.
Yeah, there's
UFOs with beams over your house.
But this
showing-
happens, Jan. This happens. Okay, it
Well,
does
yeah,
happen during
there
Bigfoot
are
encounters.
there are
People
different
get
things
this.
happening in the woods. There are different cryptids and creatures and paranormal stuff. You know, haunted pieces of items, of course, and who knows? There's a bunch of things we can't explain. I think sometimes it gets mixed in with Bigfoot, and it could be something else. Bigfoot could have special abilities and stuff. Could be things that we don't know.
Well, until I see a Bigfoot using a portal, they don't. Okay.
I
Once
love Jan. Dude, Jan is on my side for the rest of my
Yeah.
life.
It could be something else.
And
I
John-
swear to God, I don't care.
Out there.
No.
until I see one flying around in those
If I
big
watch one
UFOs,
jump in a UFO, jump in a portal, then fine. I've
then
never
we'll
seen
start,
that.
we'll start saying
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So I guess that's a good segue to end the show. Is there any other things you want to plug, talk about? I know you have your book and stuff. You have some Facebook groups and stuff you want to recommend and share.
The only Facebook, I mean, I get invites to be in a bunch of the Facebook groups. They're all wonderful. Very few of them out there, you know, they all provide a lot of information. Vals group provides a lot more information, and he's just simply reporting, digging up some of that old stuff that's still good, you know. Um,
Oh yeah.
Thank you, Jen.
oh, you're welcome. Um, as far as being a member of any given group, I'm not. I'm sort of independent. I do my own thing. I march to a different drummer, the beat of a different drummer. You know, I get a lot of invites. I'm not patting myself on the back, but I've had people where I go into large groups, outings, and they'll say, we learned more from you in 20 minutes than we have in years of doing research.
The Lost Cryptids are honored to have you, Janice. I mean, no, literally.
Of course.
I mean, I've been put to the test. Like I said, I can show you everything from the very subtle signs.
There's
all
no
the-
test here, though. Here's the thing: we're different. There's no test here.
Yeah, we always like to hear different people's experiences and opinions
Mhm.
on things because there's a lot of things we just don't know. There are no
Right.
experts, and we have people who have experiences, and that's what we look at and
Mm.
study because that's
Yeah.
all we have. We have evidence and stuff, but we don't have anything other than that. And with people experiences, what we
Yeah.
is pretty much the golden nugget that we have because then we find the behavior traits and
Mhm.
things they do. So I guess with that, thank you so much for coming on, Janice. I really
Well,
appreciate
thank you for having me.
Thank you,
Oh
Jan.
yeah, it was so much fun.
Thank you,
Thank you.
We
Janice.
definitely have to get you on.
Thank you.
Chad. Thank you, Chad and Val, for. Being
Sorry
on
if I
the
talk
show.
too much, you guys. You know how I am.
Nah, you're,
You
Chad,
knew when you
yeah.
signed me up for this.
It's all good.
Thank you, everyone in the chat. Really
Yes.
appreciate everyone being friendly and asking questions and stuff. So,
Good night.
go ahead.
Good
Oh,
night.
I'd like to leave this. Let's let Val in this, man. Come on, Val needs one more question. Come
Well,
on.
Jan, these guys are all part of the Lost Cryptids, Michigan, Southeast Michigan. A good group of people. We know each other quite well. We spend a lot of time with each other. But it is kind of unique, the different people that we have associated in this group and stuff. And it's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here and to finally talk with you. And I know we've had some good talks, but that was over the words. That was over the messenger.
Yeah.
But we had some good talks, and I do truly cherish that. And it's been my honor. So, thank you.
Time out. Time out.
Oh,
Time
yeah,
out, man. Val has one more question, I can tell. Come on, Val. Make it a good one. One more question. Just one. Come on, Val. One good question for Jan.
There's a lot of talk within the Bigfoot community of cedar trees and the importance of cedar trees with Bigfoots. And there is some belief that cedar trees play a significant role in their communication. And there are some that believe that a broken cedar leaf branch given to you or left for you to see is a communication that they that they killed an enemy, or they did something there that they want you significant, that they want you to note, or somebody else to note. The cedar leaf, the cedar twig. If you've never heard of that in your realm, in your orbit of associates, ask around and see if anybody's ever heard that too.
Oh, I've heard that. I've had that happen. Chief Dan was here he's Leonard Dan.
Okay.
Back several years ago. He's Navajo, the Dine. He was here, and we went up. We saw Grumpy. Grumpy would not come out with the other people present, but he did come toward me and Leonard Dan himself. And the cedar branch is a cleansing thing. It's the same thing as sage or pine.
Okay.
Okay. For them to gift you something like that is like saying you're a part of them. It's like passing a peace pipe. Make sense?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. So, well, with that, I guess we'll be ending the show. And next week we'll have.
I think we did great, man.
We'll have some more guests coming up. What's going on, Chad?
Okay.
I think we did great too, guys. I hope you guys think that too.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Jan. Good night, Blake.
People on. Everyone, you guys have fun. Take it easy. Thanks again for joining, and until next time.
Good night.